Hi, this is Megan Chapman, and I have been asked to discuss a few of my paintings in the recent exhibition, A Place to Breathe, at Irving Gallery in Oxford. Today I was asked to discuss the painting For What It's Worth, which is mixed media on canvas. It was painted in 2019. It's 61 by 76.5 centimeters, and framed it's 64 by 79.5 centimeters, and is 1,250 pounds. It is one of three paintings, roughly about the same size, that are all in the current show that takes its title from my painting, A Place to Breathe. So there is a painting For What It's Worth, which I'll be discussing in more detail today, A Place to Breathe, and Our Favorite Mistakes. Then there are also three smaller pieces that are from a different series, a series that preceded the three larger pieces that are also on show at the Irving Gallery in Oxford. So today I was specifically asked to talk about For What It's Worth. For What It's Worth is a painting, I guess that you could say it's almost divided into three or almost four different sections. The bottom third, the bottom third of the painting is this kind of medium tone gray. And then in the center, we get this dark brown black with yellow jagged lines stretching across it. The yellow lines are done in oil pastel. Then there's a glimpse of an underpainting with blue, a pale blue, almost watercolor in its approach, although these paints are acrylic. Then we have a bit of almost a green, a little orange, and then again, the canvas is mostly covered in a darkness, in this dark black-brown. There are pencil marks, the yellow marks, and then there is almost like a white ghost-like line that dances across, almost in a diagonal, across the piece. It's hard to single out this one particular piece, as it was part of this series that included the pieces A Place to Breathe and Our Favorite Mistakes, which is now I'm remembering is Our Favorite Mistakes is the piece that I was asked to really speak about today. Our Favorite Mistakes is sort of like a bookend, if you will, to For What It's Worth. Again, the bottom corner of the painting is a gray diagonal. Then there are white shapes, maybe bird shapes or boat shapes, or, of course, in my mind, simply abstracted shapes. And then there are lots of other colors that sort of peer out. It's kind of an acidic yellow and a warm orange and a turquoise and perhaps yellow ochre underneath the surface and black. And again, that white ghost thread-like line. These pieces are particularly more drawn. They're quite painterly, but they're also more drawn. I was really enjoying mark making. These were all done at the end of 2019, most of them done in the month of November, and a few little bits finished off in December. It was quite a prolific time for me. I seem to have produced, I can't remember, but it was an inordinate amount of paintings for the time. I was quite inspired as the year was wrapping up. I was also quite frustrated. And truth be told, these paintings, which, by the way, or incidentally, are done on recycled canvases. So these canvases were purchased from a recycle, reuse, reduce store in a shipping container. And the shipping container in the winter gets kind of cold and dark and damp. And I realized that they had quite a few canvases. We were also approaching Brexit at this time, and most of the canvases I use usually come from mainland Europe. And I was thinking, like many people were thinking, about food and other goods that would start to be imported, that even, my materials would be impacted by Brexit and import tariffs and things like that. So what better thing to do than to reuse these old canvases and catch them before perhaps they, were no longer usable. So these are thin profile canvases. Normally I paint on, about 4 centimeter thick canvas. These are thinner profile canvases. Therefore, their sides are finished off in white, and they are sunk into a white tray frame. So that informed the work. The fact that these were second-hand canvases, if you will, that removed some of the preciousness from it all, and allowed me the freedom to have fun, to really exploit the canvas and the surface, as well as to work with the paintings that were already on the canvas. These had they were probably studies. They had heavily textured sections. Maybe they were painted with florals or nudes. So they had texture and underpaintings that were there. I certainly wasn't going to strip away all the bits of texture. And, so in a way, it's sort of like a collaboration with the painter who came before. Of course, I'm covering up their work, so you no longer see it. But those textures and decisions they made with their technique impact my work and make me stretch a bit, because they're not things I would normally do. I'm more of a thinly layered painter, not so much a heavy impasto sort of painter. So it was an interesting thing to work with. So that freedom of not having the usual expense, the freedom of having this kind of immediate stockpile of canvases to work on, working with someone else's texture, all of these things, this ghost painting left behind, dealing with covering it up, any trouble that I might have with that, anything left behind, all of that informed this kind of strange body of work that forced itself into being. I just had an open studio event, and at the time, for one reason or another, we had an interesting group of people come through the studio, perhaps atypical, or perhaps my mood was atypical. I absolutely adore talking to people about art. I'm not shy about talking about art. I basically am a bit of an evangelical when it comes to talking about art. So when these folks came into my studio and were a little less up for seeing art, I found it quite challenging. People seemed to be timid that day, scared to cross the threshold, unable to interact with the art in a meaningful or emotional way. And it was a bit like pulling teeth for me. And truthfully, I find that quite heartbreaking, because art for me is such a wonderful gift and something I want to share with so many people, and something that I believe should not be exclusive. So I just remember these folks it seemed like everyone came in with a chip on their shoulder. Who knows? Maybe I woke up with a chip on my shoulder, and that's how come I thought that way. But it just seemed they were far away. Here I was, my studio was ready and my work was out, and I just created this new body of work that I was kind of excited about, and I was trying to show them the work that I had, and it just was falling on deaf ears. So I remember afterward, and also quite honestly, there were some patronizing comments at the time. I still struggle sometimes with how I fit in the art scene here, compared to the art scene I left behind in the States. how people talk about art here and how people talk about artists here compared to back home. So, it's always a wrestling match and cultures and I'm kind of learning as I go after living here for almost 5 years now, or a little over 5 years now, actually. So I'm dealing with all these challenges. I'm very excited about talking, and no one's really biting. So I feel absolutely gutted after the event. And, it would be tempting just to give up sort of for a little while or take a break or whatever. But instead, I got angry. And I went back into the studio the next week, following Monday, after I think the studio was open on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I was mad as hell. So I was determined to give the people what they wanted. I thought I could give them a survey of modern art because something seemed to be sort of lacking in their basic understanding about art, and something seemed to be like a huge, huge void or gap. Something was missing between what I was doing and what they were able to receive in their minds. Everything always was about how much money my studio cost, how I rented a studio, where I went to university, where I got my training, what I was doing here, and so very little about actually stopping and looking at the art. I've been a painter for over 25 years. I really don't think my qualifications mean that much anymore. I mean, I have the qualifications as well. And I guess I just was tired of hearing it that day. So when I got back in the studio the following Monday, I just let it rip. And I sort of, in a way, summoned all the artists that had come before me. And I kind of took a trip through their work and through my own work, solidifying my sensibilities and my dedication to abstract expressionism. I don't paint boat pictures. I don't paint lighthouses. I don't paint harbor scenes. I don't paint fields. I don't paint tilted tables with still lives and cups and saucers and bicycles akimbo. That's just not what I do. I paint work that comes from somewhere else, like an alchemist. I paint work that's influenced by music, my emotions, the stroke of the brush, the drag of the oil pastel on the canvas. I paint in relation to my psychology and everyone who I come into contact with. And that's what my work's about. And so in a way, as I made my way through this new series of work, it was almost like a survey of American modern art in a way. But at the same time, the paintings were clearly mine. And then over time, things started to evolve and come into a new series. And that's where these 3 large paintings were born from. And that's where our favorite mistakes came from. It's ethereal, but it's rooted, it's drawn and airy, it's dark, it's mysterious. But there are things that if you need something like a boat, you could find it, or a bird. If you need design and graphics, it's there. If you need color, it's there too. You just need to look a little bit through the layers. And it feels good to me in my eyes. While there's so much disorder and chaos, there's actually quite a bit of order, quite a bit of groundedness, quite a bit of rootedness. These ghost lines and their energy and their qualities as they thread about and crisscross through these colors being revealed. At once, it's very monochromatic painting. Then you see these oranges and teals and turquoise and orange and the acidic yellow working with the gray and the darkness. And that's what the painting's about. It's about energy. It's about emotion. It's about giving people what they want in a different way, giving them something they can root to, anchor on to, but something that is all mine. And it was a process born of rebellion and anger, but it produced something quite beautiful. And I think that's really all I have to say about those 3 works at this time. If you have any other questions about the work or something specific that I've said, please let me know, and I'd love to talk about it further. Thanks for tuning in. I haven't done one of these podcasts in a while, but I'm starting to think I might bring it back. All right. Hope you're well, happy, and inspired wherever you are.